Have you ever heard of a wedding dress so cursed that every bride who dares to wear it never makes it to the altar alive? This is not just a legend. It is the story of Eleanor Whitmore, a young British bride whose dream gown became her nightmare. Let's begin at the beginning with the introduction of our beloved protagonist. Or shall I say, anti-heroine, Eleanor Whitmore, a resident of Yorkshire, England in the early 1900s. She was a rich girl, but not the spoiled, vapid type. In fact, she was quite the opposite. She was elegant, graceful, adored by many, yet she lived a quiet, simple life. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something about her that made her truly special. A purity of heart, a kindness that shone through her every action. All that was until one day when Eleanor was introduced to the most beautiful wedding dress she had ever seen. At the ripe age of 24, Eleanor was finally engaged to be married to Thomas Blackwell, a charming officer returning from the war, and the wedding was set for spring. Like every girl, Eleanor wanted the perfect dress. So her family took her to an old boutique in London, a place rumored to have the finest and rarest collection of gowns, some dating back to the Victorian era. As soon as Eleanor stepped in, the bell above the door jingled merrily, but the atmosphere inside was strangely eerie. The shop was dimly lit with dusty gowns hanging like ghosts on the walls. And in the corner, shrouded in darkness, sat a single dress on a pedestal. It was white, but not pure. Its lace seemed hand-stitched centuries ago, with patterns almost resembling veins. Eleanor felt drawn to it, and as she approached, she heard the shopkeeper, an elderly woman with hollow eyes, whisper, "That gown carries sorrow, Miss Whitmore." "I wouldn't choose it," but Eleanor was captivated. She ignored the warning and bought the dress without a second thought. That night, Eleanor hung the dress by her bedside, admiring it as the candlelight flickered. The whispers started subtly, like the rustling of leaves outside her window. At first they were incoherent, but then they began to form words. "Eleanor," they beckoned. "Come play with us. Eleanor, we are here to take you home." A chill ran down Eleanor's spine. Was it the dress? The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and suddenly the clock chimed midnight. Eleanor watched in horror as the lace on the dress twitched and moved as if breathing. The veil tilted slightly as if an invisible bride stood behind her. Then everything went silent. The following days were filled with unease. Servants reported hearing footsteps in Eleanor's room at night, the sound of a woman pacing back and forth. Then there was the incident with the mirror. One afternoon, while Eleanor was trying on the veil, its shards cracked on their own accord, as though the glass itself had turned to ice. Once, Eleanor even fainted while holding the gown, waking up to find her hands stained with crimson. It was the exact shade of red that would later become synonymous with blood. Fear started to grip Eleanor, but Thomas, her fiancé, only thought it was silly superstition. He begged her to burn the dress, but Eleanor refused. She was too obsessed with wearing it on her wedding day. Days turned into a week and the haunting escalated. On the eve of the wedding, the Whitmore estate was struck by a terrible storm. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder roared, and the wind howled like a wounded animal. Inside Eleanor's room, the candle flames danced wildly, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The gown seemed to glow with an eerie light. All of a sudden, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow, deliberate steps that seemed to be coming closer. Eleanor hid under the bed, clutching the dress, her heart pounding in her chest. Then she heard a knock on the door. "Eleanor, my dear," her mother's voice called out. "Are you all right in there? We're all getting worried." But it wasn't Eleanor's mother who entered the room. When the door creaked open, it was her maid, Mary, her face pale with terror. "Miss Eleanor, I swear I saw a woman standing by your bed. She was wearing your wedding dress, but it was inside out. And then she vanished." Eleanor shook her head, trying to dismiss it as her imagination, but Mary insisted. "No, miss, it was there. I saw it with my own eyes." And that night, Eleanor locked herself in with the dress. No one dared to enter. As dawn broke, the storm outside had subsided, leaving behind an eerie calm that was even more unsettling than the tempest itself. The sky was overcast, devoid of the warmth that usually heralded the start of a new day. A thick fog hung low, shrouding the landscape in an unnatural gloom. The Whitmore estate stood shrouded in mist, its silhouette distorted as if seen through a veil. The guests began to arrive, their faces etched with concern. They had come to a somber affair, yet none could have imagined the tragedy that awaited them within the hallowed halls of the Whitmore estate. Eleanor had not been seen since the previous evening. Her disappearance was most peculiar. Had she simply vanished into thin air, or was there something more sinister at play? Eleanor's wedding day dawned gray and heavy with dread. The air itself seemed to weep. Birds refused to sing their cheerful songs, and the wind carried the scent of decay. By noon, the guests had gathered in the church, their hushed whispers doing little to mask the growing panic. Eleanor was late. Unnerved, Thomas began to pace, his anxiety palpable. Where is she? Why isn't she here? His eyes darted towards the heavy oak doors, searching for any sign of his bride. But she did not come, and as the clock chimed 12, despair settled over the congregation. Then suddenly, the church doors creaked open, and there she stood, or rather floated. Eleanor appeared in the cursed gown, but something was terribly wrong. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips blue as the darkest nights. She was walking, but lifelessly, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. How could this be? What had happened to her? She was a corpse dressed in a wedding gown. Eleanor glided towards the altar as if in a trance. Her eyes were vacant, staring into a distance that none could see. Thomas rushed to her side, his heart breaking at the sight of her. He reached out to touch her, to hold her, and for a moment, the veil lifted. He could see Eleanor beneath the icy grip of death, her soul lost to the abyss. Then the veil fell back, tightening around her neck like a cruel jest. Her head snapped back, her veil fell, and Eleanor collapsed in Thomas's arms. And so, the Whitmore wedding never happened. Instead, there was a funeral. Eleanor Whitmore was buried in that very gown, a bride entombed in her wedding dress, trapped forever in the clutches of the curse. No one knows what evil entity possessed the dress or why it chose Eleanor, but the tale serves as a warning to those who dare to defy the spirits that dwell in the shadows. For some time after the burial, strange things happened around the estate. Animals refused to go near the graveyard. Trees withered and died as if struck by an invisible blight. And one stormy night, Thomas disappeared, taken perhaps by the same spirit that had claimed his bride. The Whitmore wedding dress remains a haunting legend in the small town of Yorkshire, a grim reminder of the unseen forces that can twist the most joyous of occasions into the deepest of tragedies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this spooky tale, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying stories that will haunt your dreams. Also, let me know in the comments below what you think happened to Eleanor and what you think the ghost in the dress wanted with her. Welcome to my channel. Today's scary story is about a cursed wedding dress that feeds on its wearer. This is actually part 2 of the story, so if you haven't already watched part 1, then go ahead and watch that first. Okay, here we go. Previously on this channel, we followed Emily Carter, the young bride who discovered a wedding dress older than memory itself. A dress that didn't just belong to her, it claimed her, but the story isn't over. In fact, what came next was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Days after Emily disappeared on the night of her wedding rehearsal, the town whispered. Some claimed she ran away. Others believed she never left the church at all. Her fiancé, Thomas, refused to believe she was gone. He searched every street, every field, every abandoned house, whispering her name into the wind. But the only thing he ever found was a piece of the dress. And it was wet, not with rain, but with something thicker. Something dark. The police dismissed it. They called it a runaway bride case. But one officer, Detective Harris, couldn't ignore the unease clawing at his chest. The dress Emily wore that night had a history. He dug into old archives, yellowed newspapers, forgotten records. And that's when he discovered Emily wasn't the first. In 1876, a bride vanished from her ceremony. Only her gown was left behind. In 1904, another bride disappeared at the altar. Witnesses claim the dress moved on its own. In 1939, a seamstress stitched a cursed lace into a gown. Weeks later, she was found dead, the fabric stuffed down her throat. Harris felt a chill crawl up his spine. Each bride had worn the same dress. Each had met the same fate. He revisited the church where Emily's wedding was to be held. He spoke to the priest, Father Michael, an old man with eyes that held too many memories. Michael told him about the dress, how it had been in the church for decades, passed down from bride to bride. But it wasn't just a tradition, it was a necessity. You see, the dress chose its wearer. If you were engaged, the dress would find you in your sleep and pull you into the wardrobe, forcing you to wear it. Then it would take you on the night of your wedding. Michael showed Harris the hidden chamber behind the altar. It was filled with dresses, all identical, all waiting. As Harris examined them, he realized they weren't just clothes. They were trophies, each bearing the mark of its captured bride. Harris knew he had to stop this, to break the curse before another bride disappeared. But how do you destroy something that's already claimed so many souls? That night, Harris returned to the church, not as a detective, but as a supplicant. He put on one of the dresses, bracing himself for the inevitable. But nothing happened. The dress didn't pull him close. It didn't drag him down. Instead, it lay heavy on his shoulders, a shroud rather than a wedding gown. As dawn broke, Harris emerged from the church, the dress still on, but he wasn't the same. His face was pale, his eyes distant. He was a vessel now, empty and waiting. It turned out the dress hadn't chosen Harris. He had chosen the dress. See, the dress fed on a bride's life force, taking her beauty and youth, leaving behind a husk. But a man's essence was different. The dress couldn't consume him, but it could use him. Harris became its new host, its new avatar. Meanwhile, Thomas, still mourning Emily, felt a shift in the world, a presence, a feeling of dread. He followed the trail of despair and arrived at the church. But when he entered, he found no bride, only an altar draped in black cloth. As he pulled it aside, revealing the dress, he saw Emily's wedding ring lying on the velvet cushion. Just then, a voice echoed through the empty church, soft yet commanding. It was Emily's voice. She told Thomas about the dress, its hunger, its hold on her, and she begged him to destroy it. With tears in his eyes, Thomas took the dress, ignoring the pleas of his aching heart. He carried it to the graveyard, where beneath the ancient oak tree, he dug a hole, buried the dress and the ring. Then he came back to the church to tell Father Michael what he'd done. But when he found the old priest, he saw the truth. Michael was young again, his face free of wrinkles, his eyes shining with stolen youth. And he wasn't alone. All the townspeople had returned, all drained and rejuvenated. They looked to Thomas, their savior, the boy who had broken the cycle, the boy who had freed them from the dress's grasp. They celebrated with a feast, thanking Thomas for ending the reign of the cursed wedding dress. And as the moon climbed high in the sky, they danced and sang, unaware of the whispers in the graveyard. The dress stirred beneath the earth, its hunger not yet satiated. It reached out with ghostly fingers, seeking revenge. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the town thrived. Children laughed, lovers held hands, and the elderly shared stories of the past. But on the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, the celebration ceased. The villagers felt it, the return of fear, the resurrection of dread. They gathered at the graveyard. As dusk painted the sky in hues of purple and orange, they watched as the old church at the top of the hill burst into flames. Fire raced across its roof, licking at the steeple. And at the edge of the crowd, Thomas and Detective Harris exchanged a grim look. They knew what this meant. The dress wasn't finished with them yet. As the last rays of daylight faded, the dress rose from its grave, or rather, the grave it had made itself. It emerged, pulling Emily's spirit with it, her form solidifying as the dress wrapped itself around her like a second skin. The villagers screamed, stumbling back, but the dress kept coming, its hunger driving it forward. Now listen. I know I just said that Thomas and Detective Harris knew what this meant, but I think it bears some clarification. What they knew was that the dress needed something, some living soul to feed on to grow stronger. But what they didn't know, because no one knows, was that the dress was sentient. It had a sort of consciousness and was capable of planning and manipulating events to get what it wanted, which in this case was Emily's soul. You see, when Thomas buried the dress, he did it without understanding the true nature of the beast he was dealing with. And as a result, he gave the dress an opportunity to heal itself. Because if he had completely destroyed it, then burned it or dissolved it in acid or something, then the dress wouldn't have been able to come back. At this point, the dress confronted Thomas. It demanded he give it Emily's ring, which he reluctantly did, knowing that doing so would appease it for now. But that appeasement was short-lived. The dress lunged at him, its grip like iron. It dragged him toward the burning church, whispering promises of power, of eternal life. Realizing he was being manipulated, Thomas resisted, but the dress was too strong. It pulled him through the flames, shielding him with its own body. And when he emerged on the other side, he wasn't the same. The dress had bound him to its will, making him its servant. With Thomas under its control, the dress turned its attention to the rest of the villagers. It moved with unnatural speed, snatching them up and one by one, draining their life force. The village square, once a place of joy, became a hunting ground. Screams echoed, bodies fell, and the dress grew stronger with each passing moment. All the while, Emily's spirit struggled within it, begging for release. She cried out for Thomas, hoping he could hear her, but he was lost to the dress. Now, this is where things get pretty messed up. The dress wanted to escape the graveyard, to devour more souls, but it couldn't leave on its own. It needed a vessel, a living bride to carry it beyond the confines of the graveyard. And unfortunately for everyone, it found the perfect candidate, Emily's younger sister, who was so distraught over her sister's disappearance that she hadn't noticed the subtle changes in the townspeople, the dimming of their eyes, the stealing of their smiles. The dress whispered to her, promising to reunite her with Emily, and she, blinded by grief, didn't hesitate. She put on the dress, becoming its new bride. Together, the dress and its bride walked out of the graveyard, leaving a trail of decay in their wake. They moved towards the nearest town, where unsuspecting souls waited for the dawn. The legend of the cursed wedding dress continues to echo through time, a chilling tale of obsession, despair, and the insatiable hunger of a relic from beyond our understanding. Do you think the story had a satisfying ending? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to hear another scary story, then stay tuned for more content. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.